wondering how I got into this mix. Mind playing tricks and I'm fiending for a fix. Habits override.
Welcome to the Conscious Resistance News Wrap-Up. My name is Derek Bros. Today is Sunday, February 1st, 2015. Happy Super Bowl Sunday! Yeah, right. Well, I hope you're having another powerful, free, enriching weekend. Spending it with friends, family, whatever you want, whoever you want to. Hope you're not working too hard. I don't know where you're at, but I'm in Houston, Texas, and I'm looking out the window, and the sun is shining, and it's 70 degrees and beautiful, and it's February. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm headed to the East Coast, to New York, into a freaking blizzard. Imagine my surprise and my excitement. So I'll be going back to New York City to cover the Silk Road Ross Ulbricht trial. We're going to talk more about that in a few moments, but that's what I'm getting into. That's what I'm preparing for. In a few hours, I'll be leaving, catching the plane, and arriving in New York City tonight. And beginning tomorrow, I will be giving full coverage of that report, of that trial. So before we get into the top news, of course, for new listeners, this is the weekly news wrap-up I do every weekend, which covers the top stories from theconsciousresistance.com, as well as my personal work, writing for Ben Swan, The Liberty Beat, and Anti-Media. You can find all my articles at derekbros.contently.com if you're interested in seeing all those. But yeah, this is the news wrap-up podcast that we do every weekend. This can be found, of course, in video form on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/consciousresistance, or on our SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/TCR live. Please subscribe to both of those channels if possible, or whichever one you prefer. Also, follow us on Twitter at TheConsciousRN. You can follow me at DBrosLiveFree. And of course, you can find us on Facebook at the Conscious Resistance Network, and I am there as well and always available to talk. So let's get into the news, shall we? We just had a new piece posted this morning by Danilo, aka Peaceful Anarchism, Student Loan Debt, the Modern Rite of Passage. And this is a really good topic because I've actually had somebody message me in the past week asking me my thoughts on student loan debt. And it's honestly not something I've covered very much, not because I don't care or don't think it's an issue, just because I don't have any student loan debt. I mean, I went to school, community college for a few semesters, and, you know, I just was going through a lot of stuff and wasn't able to get through it. And it really wasn't the way I wanted to learn as well. But, you know, I know that there are plenty of my friends who are dealing with student loan debt and who are going to be in debt for quite a long time. And this guy was basically asking me, do you think this is a scam? And I said, in some ways, yeah. It's the idea. This culture teaches that without going to their approved schools, then you'll never have a job that's, you know, worth anything, and you'll be a failure. And in order to get those jobs, you have to go to these schools. And these schools get more and more expensive, so the government and the banks are happy to loan you money that you'll pay back for the rest of your life. And then when you get out, there's not really much opportunities for that. So that seems to be the case for many people, at least from what I've heard. Maybe you have a different experience. Share that with us. But that was a recent one. We also had a new contributor threw out a piece called The War on Drugs Has Failed, which I think is obvious to a lot of us, but it's definitely his thoughts on that, and it's interesting, so check that one out. Another one that just came out this week from Peaceful Anarchism is Learning and Living Are Inseparable, and I really love his pieces. He does some thought-provoking stuff. Him and Francis both really do. And then we have Why Would a Rational Person Call Themselves a Libertarian Anarchist Voluntarist by Dominic, I believe. And then our friend Damon over there in the UK sent out Knee-Jerk into a State of Security, which is basically just about what many of us see, the surveillance state building, the police state building, and how various actions, whether they are conspiracies or truly happening the way the media presents them, ultimately doesn't matter, because people have a knee-jerk reaction and accept the TSA groping them, they accept guns on the street, cops, they accept military equipment because they're afraid, and so they're you know, whether it's done purposefully or not, the response is the same, and it's not a good one. And I recorded a new positive affirmation this week called Celebrating the Sun. This is my 8th positive affirmation, and I think that you might enjoy it. We also had some new news. I posted a blog there. The network continues to grow and explains more about what we're doing. 2015, I'm really trying to take this network into a multi-channel network. The original vision, and I think we are part of the way there, is to have everything we have now: content, vlogs, articles, interviews about consciousness, spirituality, liberty, philosophy, anarchy, all these things. But also I want to bring in the health and how-to self-help element of this. And I really want to be able to compete as a multi-channel network that has all these various programs. What I want to be able to add, and I'm looking for people who want to contribute this way, people who want a channel to push out their yoga through, and people who maybe make home cooking videos, healthy food, organic, non-GMO food. It doesn't have to be vegetarian, but just good meals. Then I want to share those through the network as well. We really want to make this a lifestyle network, because that is how we're going to change the culture and move people beyond the current state of affairs. And that's one of the things we're talking about there. Please check that out. Another interview with Suzanne Tempelhoff, founder of BitNation, discussing the path towards government irrelevancy. And then also our webmaster Neil posted To Hold Back Wrongdoing, where he breaks down his ideas on what he believes the conscious resistance means. So all that came out just this last week from theconsciousresistance.com. So if you're not subscribed to our RSS feed or following us on Facebook or Twitter, please do if you want to keep up with the latest information there. Check out those important articles and concepts there. Now I've got 7 stories for you today that I want to get into, so I'm going to be brief with a few of them, and I really do hope that you'll follow the links and the information provided in the YouTube video and the SoundCloud. So this weekend was exciting for me. I'll start with Friday first before we get into the next story here. Friday I went to Austin, Texas, a couple hours away from Houston, to speak at Brave New Books, an amazing community bookshop that has all kinds of good information on everything you need to know about the world. Philosophically, research, government, everything. And they host community events, including the Alliance of Austin Agorists monthly networking party, where they usually have speakers come out, they have some free beer for donation, and they sell information, books, and pamphlets about Agorism, books and shirts, and people can come bring their own crafts, and you basically have a local marketplace. Like, I've gone there before and sold my seeds to different people. People are selling their jewelry, people are doing different things, and having the actual Agora, the marketplace right there. So I was invited to come speak about the Houston Freethinkers and I guess my path towards Agorism again, and what we're planning for 2015. I really have some ideas on how to incorporate Agorism more into Houston activism. The Houston Freethinkers itself isn't an Agorist community activist alliance, although I tend towards that way. There is nothing that says, okay, if this group's about Agorism, or if you join this, you're part of whatever. It's a free-flowing group, but the ideas and really just the organic way we've grown have totally been Agorist. I mean, we're involved in the community. That's where our big focus is: community gardens, Houston Exchange Network, the Houston Community Coalition. Really, and I stressed this at this event on Friday, that I believe Agorism is not just about building alternative economic institutions and alternative food production institutions and alternative education. Of course, those are important, but literally creating alternative forms of governance, self-governance, and community governance, but also independent alternative media and the culture. This is why in Houston, I'm also involved with booking and promoting events, music, activism, poetry, art events, concerts, and big festivals, free festivals, that get people to realize that these ideas, this positive message, can be fun. And that's our goal here, is we're making it cool to give a shit and doing it in a way that is going to change the culture, because ultimately we're not going to have any type of real evolution or revolution without getting, for one, the youth involved, but also by just changing the culture, because we have to recognize that most people are provided with what's in front of them, right? They hear the radio stations, they watch whatever's provided from on the the TV stations, they just surf mainstream internet websites. Type of person that doesn't really think critically and doesn't dig deeper for information and answers. This is the type of person that we need to reach, and you don't necessarily do that by protesting on the streets, although I do that and just did that yesterday, and I think it's valuable. But we do this by making a shift in the culture, and that's what I'm after, and that's what I believe the way that Agorism really is going to have to be applied, not just in political institutions, apolitical institutions, community institutions, but in new cultural institutions, not to replace them, but, well, yes, to replace them, but not as some monoculture like they're attempting now, but to replace this idea of a monoculture of only one size fits all way of living with a way of thinking that allows each individual to pursue their highest good in whatever way that manifests itself. And that's what we need. We need to promote the creativity, the ingenuity, the entrepreneurship, where this culture, this statist mindset is about breaking that down and not promoting those ideas. They don't want empowered individuals. So that's what I talked about there, and we'll be starting the Alliance of Houston Agoras soon. Look out for that if you're in Houston. Now, yesterday, on Saturday, I was also a part of a global protest that I helped launch at the beginning of, I guess, January. I just really started noticing people weren't paying attention to the Senate report on torture, and it bothered me. It bothered me to see this issue being swept under the rug, and I started talking to Nick from the Anti-Media and some other activists and saying, why don't we try to push this out to a larger audience and see if we can get some response, because originally I was just going to do an action in Houston, and then other cities started jumping on board. Eventually, I think we had 15 to 20 cities across the U.S., a couple in Canada, Germany, Australia, and some other places. And I have to say, it really made me feel good. I started the day out yesterday feeling a bit frustrated because I was in Austin Friday night, woke up, caught the bus home to Houston, immediately came home, changed my clothes, took a shower, and then headed downtown. And I just felt really disorganized, and we were all getting there late, and the media was there, the Houston Chronicle and Telemundo, one of the Spanish stations, and I just thought we were slacking and we should have been there way earlier. But it ended up being much better than I could have anticipated, even with our small numbers of, I think, maybe less than 15 people. We had less than 15 people, but we had signs, we had our voices, we had flyers, and me and 3 others were in orange jumpsuits on our knees on the corner of this busy intersection of Houston where there was a lot of traffic, people stopping, taking pictures, videoing, honking. There was only one negative comment we got when somebody drove by and yelled, "Kill 'em all." And of course, the point of this is not only for the U.S.'s torture of people, and often cases innocent people who've been cleared of any wrongdoing but are not allowed to go home, in Guantanamo Bay and black sites around the world, but also just victims of torture around the world in general. And I know that some people understand, and I understand this as well, that the issue is complex, but we have to get past those complexities in this ridiculous way of thinking that, well, for one, from my conversations with plenty of people are afraid. People believe that we should be afraid that any moment Islamic extremists are going to come here and behead us, and maybe they would behead us, and I just don't see it. But what I respond to is, even if that is a threat, I don't see that as a threat that to me is larger than the encroachment on my liberties every day by the United States government, or the abuses by the hands of police, or surveillance. I feel that is a more immediate threat than some people all the way over there who are being funded by the U.S. government. That's another thing, is there's evidence to show that some of the funding is coming through banks in the United States, and also that we helped spark what has now become ISIS. I mean, this is just the usual thing with the United States and their attempt at hegemony around the world. I know that those issues matter, and some people say, well, that's why we have to torture because, or some people are like, oh, why don't you protest them beheading people? And it's like we endorse that or something. I think it's all fucked up. I think it's all wrong, okay? You can protest one thing but also still care about other things. People are like, well, why aren't you protesting about the people being tortured in America? I am. It's for everybody. But this report came out, and immediately afterwards everybody was more willing to talk about the interview and fucking what's now like a Deflategate and all this stuff, and nobody wants to talk about this thing. And what I've also found, and it's a bit disturbing to me, is there are plenty of activists and people who around the country who do support torture, who think that it's right, and it's because of that fear, because they've been taught that, like, oh, well, like every time somebody, Dick Cheney or any of these other guys reference torture, they discuss 9/11 because they want to go put that in your head, like, oh, well, we don't want to have another 9/11, and then people shut up. Okay, never mind, you're right, 9/11 was crazy, I don't even want to fuck with that. You know what, torture whoever you need to keep me safe. But it's not keeping us safe. It's not keeping us safe. So this article I wrote for Ben Swan is called "Don't Let the Media Fool You. The United States government is still torturing," for those of you who don't know that. And I include in here new information information that shows that members of Congress have been briefed since at least 2010, and probably before then. 2001 to 2007, they were briefed on these programs. And although Obama came into office claiming that he issued an executive order that stopped torture, that is actually not the case, and his administration has stood in the way. They tried to specifically block the Senate from having access to certain CIA documents, and they also have Obama's allowed the force feeding of individuals who are protesting their treatment in Guantanamo. And again, some of those people were cleared of any wrongdoing and are simply trying to only do the only thing they can do, which is to protest by hunger striking. And in response, they're force feeding them. And all international standards and medical ethics see force feeding of somebody who is conscious and able to make their own decision as torture. Okay, that's torture. I mean, you can read the reports of nasal damage, permanent nasal damage, because they're shoving these tubes up their noses for several hours at a time and force feeding them that way. When pressured on the apparent failure of the investigation, U.S. officials said they interviewed more than 90 witnesses, but declined to say whether any of the witnesses were actually prisoners who had been subjected to the CIA interrogations. The Obama White House actually broke promises to help the Senate investigation into the CIA torture. The White House withheld thousands of documents from the Senate. There has also been reports boasting of executive action taken by Obama shortly after coming into office. Allegedly, his executive order put an end to torture under his administration. This is also false. To be fair, Obama did upgrade interrogation techniques to make sure they were in line with the U.S. Army Field Manual and thus the Geneva Convention, which has prohibited torture since 1956. However, the alternate reports that in 2006 the manual was revised to allow techniques that went beyond the Geneva Convention's restrictions. And this is a quote from them. As pointed out by U.S. psychologist Jeff Kay, who has worked extensively with torture victims, a new UN Committee Against Torture review of the manual shows that a wide range of torture techniques continue to be deployed by the U.S. government, including isolation, sensory deprivation, stress positions, chemically induced psychosis, adjustments of environmental and dietary rules, among others. So those things are continuing. And there's more information in this article, including a new document that proves that the United States does know what they're doing, violates international law, and violates, quote, core ethical values of the medical profession, but they really couldn't care less because they're going to do what they want. Always. Until you decide it's worth standing up and doing something about it. Now, as far as protests go, and protesting torture and people who've done sick things, I can't really think of a person more deserving than Henry Kissinger. Some of you may know that I think 2 years ago, me and the Houston Freethinkers confronted Henry Kissinger, what we were calling an attempted citizen's arrest. He was speaking at the Houston Asia Society Center about his achievements, as a diplomat between the United States and China. But of course, they don't mention any of his role in East Timor or the countries and nations that are looking for him that want to serve warrants on him because they say that he has contributed to genocide and to war crimes and other things. Of course, the Western world says he has diplomatic immunity and so he can never be harmed. And he's an old guy, right? He'll probably die with all this blood on his hands and never be bothered. But it's important now, something that Luke Rakowski and others have started with confronting these people in public so they know that people do know who they are. Luke's confronted Kissinger 4 times, I believe. Code Pink earlier this week interrupted the Senate hearing where he was speaking about it. I wrote about this a couple weeks ago, how he was going to be talking here. He ended up getting it, the hearing ended up being delayed because he had hurt his shoulder or something like that. So on this new date, Code Pink just walked right into the chambers as he was coming in. And there's a group of them holding signs. You can see Kissinger, war crimes, East Timor. One of them actually had handcuffs in their hands, and they were shouting, "Arrest Henry Kissinger for war crimes." And I just thought that was awesome. And of course, this ridiculous freaking John McCain has to say, "You guys are low-life scum." Here, I'm going to play a quick video of that.
Could I ask our Capitol Police to help restore order here? Could someone find out where the Capitol Police is? What's that?
In the name of the people of Cambodia, in the name of the people of Laos.
I'd like to say to my colleagues and to our distinguished witnesses this morning that I've been a member of this committee for many years, and I have never seen anything as disgraceful and outrageous and despicable as the last demonstration that just took place about, you're going to have to shut up or I'm going to have you arrested. If we can't get the Capitol Hill police in here immediately, get out of here, you low-life scum. So, Henry, I hope you will, Dr. Kissinger, I hope on behalf of all of the members of this committee on both sides of the aisle, in fact, from all of my colleagues, I'd like to apologize for allowing such disgraceful behavior towards a man who served his country with the greatest distinction. I apologize profusely. The Senate Armed Services Committee meets today to receive testimony on global challenges.
Listen to John McCain as he grovels to Henry Kissinger. I mean, that's basically what I'm hearing there. I don't know if you guys heard the same thing I did, but he's apologizing. I'm so sorry that you were just confronted for your actions. You're supposed to be above that. Keep holding them accountable, guys. Keep confronting them. It's a positive thing. A couple more stories here. Now, this last one here deals with the latest in the security state, surveillance state that we are dealing with. And the next two we're going to cover are actually related to some international topics you should be aware of. The federal government is storing hundreds of millions of American license plate records. I've been writing about ALPR's automatic license plate readers for about a year or more now. They have stingrays, they have drones, they have automatic license plate readers, they have gunshot audio detector audio recorders, military weapons, all these things. And this is important for you to know because you need to know what the opposite side has. An opposite, I don't want to think dualistically, but these people are targeting you and determined to make you be an enemy of them. So it's time for you to be aware of that. New documents released by the American Civil Liberties Union, heavily redacted, show that the DEA has gathered as many as 343 million records in the National License Plate Recognition Program. This initiative allows the DEA to connect its ALPRs and collected data with that of local law enforcement around the country. Using the Department of Homeland Security's fusion centers, this program only adds to the growing list of data collection by the U.S. government. ALPRs are used to gather license plate, time, date, and location. They can be used to create a detailed map of what individuals are doing. These devices can be attached to light poles or toll booths, as well as on top of or inside law enforcement vehicles. In 2012, the Wall Street Journal reported that the 5 previous years, the Department of Homeland Security distributed over $50 million in grants to fund the acquisition of license plate readers. One document shows that the DEA has at least 100 license plate readers in 8 states, including California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, and Georgia. The law enforcement in Southern California, San Diego, and Imperial counties and New Jersey are among the agencies that have been providing the DEA with data. And this program opened to local and state partners in 2009. The Customs and Border Patrol is also using these programs. A 2010 document explains that the DEA by then had set up 41 plate reading monitor stations throughout Texas, New Mexico, and California. This new information comes as a result of public records requests and FOIA requests filed by the ACLU in 2012. The ACLU said, with its jurisdiction and finances, the federal government is uniquely positioned to create a centralized repository of all drivers' movements across the country, and the DEA seems to be moving towards doing just that. A 2011 survey by the Police Executive Research Forum found that of the more than 70 police departments surveyed, 70% used ALPR technology and 85% expected to be using or increasing the use of technology within the next 5 years. Some believe that by 2016, as much as 25% of police vehicles will come equipped with these cameras. And of course, it's not just governments you need to worry about. There's the private industries, specifically repossession or repo companies, have been using license plate readers to gather data. Once the companies take possession of a vehicle from delinquent owners, the companies use the license plate readers to gather data, which can then be sold to the highest bidder. Jennifer Lynch with the Electronic Frontier Foundation said these private companies have amassed databases of over 1 million records. And this goes on and on. There's been a fight in LA and Southern California with them to get the Los Angeles Police Department and Los Angeles Sheriff Department to release records, and so far they have not allowed that. The two departments argued that 100% of the information requested was part of an investigation and therefore should not be released. According to the LA Weekly, two of the biggest gatherers of automatic license plate recognition information in the country are those two departments. And one last point of contention is something that's called hot lists. And I wrote about this last year. Departments and officers can create lists of vehicles of interest and alert other ALPU users when the vehicle is spotted. Officers can search individuals' plates numbers in the ALPR system to track during their shift. There seems to be no prerequisite of reasonable suspicion or a warrant needed to be added to such a list. Let's see what else. In 2009, the BBC reported on the case of John Catt. Catt is a regular attendee of anti-war protests in his hometown Brighton. His vehicle was tagged by police at one of the events, and he was added to a hot list. He said later, while on a trip to London, he was pulled over by anti-terror police. He was threatened with arrest if he did not cooperate and answer the questions of the police. In a recent investigation by Mudrock and the Boston Globe, they revealed that the Boston Police Department violated its own policies by failing to follow up on leads that were flagged by the ALPR scans. Public record requests by Mudrock found that the Boston Police Department also collected information on its own officers and their whereabouts. And they have not released any information. There is also a report out by the ACLU called "You Are Being Tracked, License Plate Readers Explained." This article came out 4 days ago, and it's got 2.7 thousand shares just through benswan.com. People are reading this information. You need to know it. Share it too. Now, in the international scene, this article I wrote for the Anti-Media was requested by some contacts who told me about this event, Op Killing Bay, by Anonymous and other hackers who were trying to get the word out about the slaughter of dolphins continuing in Japan. And this is, of course, was popularized 6 years ago in the documentary The Cove. The movie won an American Academy Award for Best Documentary as well as 24 other film awards internationally. And basically it talks about dolphin hunters in Taiji, Japan, where it's been their practice for centuries to hunt dolphins, and apparently for the meat. But as time has gone on, the economic of selling dolphin meat has switched, and a lot of people think that the meat is tainted and poisoned because of Fukushima. So there's now been an effort where people are realizing that these dolphins are being captured in Japan and then sent to aquariums and marine parks around the world, like SeaWorld. So they wanted to do an action to focus on that and bring awareness up to it. So this really lists some facts and things, and I didn't know much about this. I'm happy to contribute to it. And just a little thing here. On January 21st, 2014, 53 dolphins had been captured, and estimated 41 were killed, and another 130 to 140 were driven back to sea after suffering abuse at the hands of the fishermen. Caroline Kennedy, United States Ambassador to Japan, tweeted out, "Deeply concerned by inhumaneness of drive hunt dolphin killing." And other officials condemned this as well. Organizations, the Whale and Dolphin Conservation, estimate that more than 18,000 dolphins from 7 different species have been killed or taken into captivity from Taiji since 2000. And there's more and more. I want you to read this article so you can get your own ideas on how extensive this hunt is. I mean, I give you a lot of information. I'm not trying to paint the Japanese people at all. And I even put a section here of how to take action, if this is something you care about, other than going and joining the sea shepherds themselves and fighting the dolphin fishers and documenting them, because they have a live stream where you can watch it every single day. There's also calls to boycott them. There was this tweet storm Friday. And this is really what I want to read to you right here. And first, has been some positive news that I wrote here. Just days ago, animal rights activists were handed a victory when Ontario, Canada announced that it would ban the sale and capture of orcas, whales, dolphins, and beluga whales and walruses. So, some people even say that the dolphin hunts are actually in violation of Japan's own laws. And that's an interesting aspect to consider. Now, here's what I end the article with, and this is what I really want people to think about, because I saw in the comments on the Anti-Media Facebook page and even on the website here that some people are just like, oh, the West is calling out other people but doesn't want to look at itself. And my whole goal was to get people to look at it themselves. This is how I ended the article. Let me see. In an effort to help the fishermen move towards more sustainable sources of income, the group Save Japan Dolphins offers several suggestions to help the community transition. However, these suggestions might not be enough to persuade a community that has practiced the hunts for generations. As one fisherman told AFP, "We've got our lives. We can't simply nod to protests and end centuries of our tradition. If you want to talk about cruelty, you couldn't eat cows, pigs, or any other living creatures." Perhaps if Americans and other critics of the dolphin hunt need to take a look in the mirror and ask themselves if saving animals is worth disrupting the culture of another country. And if it is, what cultures of our own should we examine? And what ways do our behaviors and actions feed the slaughter of other animals? And that's something that I want people to look at. Obviously, I'm a vegetarian and occasional vegan, and I'm not here to fucking preach to anybody, and I don't like to be militant about that. Everybody has their own choice. I just want people to be conscious of their actions and what they're eating. But I do believe that there is a great argument that could be made for the way animals are treated in this country and really most modern countries. And if we're going to point our fingers at what's happening to dolphins, because they are insanely intelligent, they're beautiful, amazing creatures, and I hate seeing this. It disturbs me. But I also don't like the idea of messing with other people's cultures. It's really something that causes me pause, where I'm like, well, that is wrong, and I think that's not going to be good and promote freedom or promote any empowerment, but that's the way this culture's been around. And obviously we want people to evolve and to continue to be better people, but at the same time thinking that this Western way of living and thinking is the only way and that's the way everybody needs to be converted to because they'll be better off, I think that's just incorrect as well. Another international story that's very important, this one has had 4.6 thousand shares in the past couple of days. Past 2 days. Islamic State commander claims funding coming from the United States. And that's what I wrote here. And I'll read this to you briefly. An alleged commander of the Islamic State in Pakistan, or Daesh, claims that his operations have been funded through channels in the United States. Yusuf al-Salafi was reported arrested with 2 other men on January 22nd in Lahore, Pakistan. The Express Tribune reports that al-Salafi had actually been arrested in December, but had only recently been discussed publicly. He is alleged to have gone to Pakistan from Turkey and established an Islamic State group. The Express Tribune reported that a source close to the investigation and into al-Salafi confirmed that he revealed that he was getting funding routed through America to run the organization in Pakistan and recruit young people to fight in Syria. The commander claimed he was receiving $600 per individual who agreed to go to Syria. And the report says that these revelations have been shared with Secretary of State John Kerry. According to the source to the Express Tribune, quote, the U.S. had to dispel the impression that it is financing groups for its own interests, and that is why it launched offensive against the organization in Iraq, but not in Syria. Julie Lenars, executive director of the Human Security Center think tank, told the International Business Times that much of Islamic State's funding is being processed through the international banking system. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, all allies to the U.S. have been tied to funding for the Islamic State. So, just interesting to think about who's directing these things and, again, who's pushing the fear and who benefits from it. Last story that I'd like to talk to you about has to do with the environment and genetically engineered technology. And I haven't seen anyone talking about this, but this is something that I care deeply about because I do think genetically engineered trees, if not done right, I think this technology could definitely be bad. We have cross-pollination that's happened with GMO plants and other ways that's creating super weeds and all kinds of problems and super bugs. Who knows how this could happen with the trees? And there has been discussion to create a eucalyptus tree, genetically engineered eucalyptus tree forest, I think in North Carolina, and last year there was a big protest at this conference on genetically engineered trees. People protested every single day and there were arrests made, and I think it's a great effort. Recently, the Campaign to Stop GE Trees has denounced the recent announcement that the United States Department of Agriculture will not regulate the first genetically engineered tree. On January 13th, the USDA released a response letter to Arborgen, the biotech company behind the GE trees, including the loblolly pine. The letter stated that the U.S. government will not stand in the way of planting the untested tree. Critics worry about the effects of planting forests of GE trees and the risks of cross-pollination. Doug Gurin Sherman of the Center for Food Safety said the United States the USDA is ignoring the public concern. In 2013, the USDA was overwhelmed with thousands of public comments speaking against the planned GE eucalyptus tree forest. Again, I think this is something we should pay attention to, and if they start planting those trees, I think I might be up blocking that forest, protecting that forest, so they don't plant these trees until there's more studies. And again, I'm not saying that the USDA should be regulating, but I think that we need to have common sense and more science. I'm not a pure strict, like there should be no regulation or whatever, because if I'm in a community, we will have some type of quote-unquote regulations. We'll have some way to govern ourselves as individuals and as people working together. And when we do that, we might say, hey, you know what? We don't want people to plant GE trees in our community, or we're going to test them longer until we decide, and then we'll decide how we want them used or where they can be used. And I'm fine with that, as long as the community has the say-so. I don't want the USDA, this federal government, to decide that, oh, hey, it's okay for you to go plant these trees in Texas without Texas having anything to do with it, or without Houston having anything to do with it. That's my main complaint. That is the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a good one. As I said, I'm headed to New York in just about 2 hours. I will be going to cover the Silk Road trial, Ross Ulbricht, continuing covering that. If you want to keep up with my updates, be there, or follow me on, be there in New York if you can, but follow me on Twitter at DBrosLiveFree, and I'll be having updates. Follow me on Facebook, and of course I'll be writing articles for benswan.com, the anti-media, and the Liberty Beat. The Liberty Beat will have daily updates, so please do go to thelibertybeat.com, subscribe to their Facebook page, and all that good stuff, and you'll keep updates on that. I'm going to record another podcast. Once again, if you are interested in becoming a monthly subscriber to this other podcast, The Conscious Resistance Live, that is where I give you exclusive coverage. In past weeks, I've gave exclusive, deeper coverage of the Barrett Brown sentencing of the first week of Ross Ulbricht's trial. I discussed 1 week the idea of a spiritual currency and different ideas. This podcast, TCR Live, is more personal, more in-depth, philosophical, and into the news. And you can be a supporter for as little as $1 a month. Sign up for a monthly, whatever you want, and you can help me become more independent and do things like this full-time. Of course, all my articles are available for free, and this podcast you're listening to is available for free. But if you want some more in-depth stuff, please subscribe for as little as $1. This week, today, I'm going to be previewing the book, The Conscious Resistance, Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, coming in April from myself and John Vibes. And if you want to get an exclusive peek at that, please do subscribe to patreon.com/DerekBros and get some of that. Thank you guys for listening. I'll be back next week. Enjoy your week. Be beautiful. Be empowered. Live free. Think free. If you can hear this, you are the resistance. Peace.